Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Brennan, thank you for our discussions and for the joint meeting that you had with several of us on the committee last week. As we discussed then, I believe the issues before us really have nothing to do with political party and have everything to do with the checks and balances that make our system of government so special. Taking the fight to al-Qaeda is something every member of this committee feels strongly about. It's the idea of giving any president unfettered power to kill an American without checks and balances that's so troubling. Every American has the right to know when their government believes it's allowed to kill them, and ensuring that the Congress has the documents and information it needs to conduct robust oversight is central to our democracy. In fact, the committee was actually created in large part in response to lax oversight of programs that involve targeted killings. So it was encouraging last night when the President called and indicated that effective immediately he would release the documents necessary for senators to understand the full legal analysis of the President's authority to conduct the targeted killing of an American. What the President said is a good first step towards ensuring the openness and accountability that's important, and you heard that reaffirmed in the Chair's strong words right now. Since last night, however, I have become concerned that the Department of Justice is not following through with the President's commitment just yet. 11 United States senators asked to see any and all legal opinions, but when I went to read the opinions this morning, it is not clear that that is what was provided. And moreover, on this point with respect to lawyers, I think what the concern is there's a double standard. As the National Security Advisor, and you volunteered to your credit, you weren't a lawyer, you asked your lawyers and your experts to help you, and we're trying to figure out how to wade through all these documents. One of the reasons I'm concerned that it's not yet clear that what the President committed to has actually been provided. And finally, on this point, the committee has been just stonewalled on several other requests, particularly with respect to secret law. And I'm going to leave this point simply by saying I hope you'll go back to the White House and convey to them the message that the Justice Department is not yet following through on the President's commitment. Will you convey that message?
Yes, I will, Senator.
Very good. Let me now move to the public side of oversight, making sure that the public's right to know is respected. One part of oversight is congressional oversight, and our doing our work here. The other is making sure that the American people are brought in to these debates, just like James Madison said. This is what you need to preserve a republic. And I want to start with the drone issue. In a speech last year, the President instructed you to be more open with the public about the use of drones to conduct targeted killings of al-Qaeda members. So my question is, what should be done next to ensure that public conversation about drones so that the American people are brought in to this debate and have a full understanding of what rules the government's going to observe when it conducts targeted killings?
Well, I think this hearing is one of the things that can be done because I think this type of discourse between the executive and the legislative branch is critically important. I believe that there need to be continued speeches that are going to be given by the executive branch to explain our counterterrorism programs. I think there is a misimpression on the part of some American people who believe that we take strikes to punish terrorists for past transgressions. Nothing could be further from the truth. We only take such actions as a last resort to save lives when there's no other alternative to taking an action that's going to mitigate that threat. So we need to make sure that there is an understanding, and the people that were standing up here today, I think they really have a misunderstanding of what we do as a government and the care that we take and the agony that we go through to make sure that we do not have any collateral injuries or deaths. And as the chairman said earlier, the need to be able to go out and say that publicly and openly, I think, is critically important because people are reacting to a lot of falsehoods that are out there. And I do see it as part of my obligation And I think it's the obligation of this committee to make sure the truth is known to the American public and to the world.
Mr. Brennan, I'm also convinced there are parts of drone policy that can be declassified consistent with national security, and I hope that you will work with me on that if you are confirmed. Let me ask you several other questions with respect to the President's authority to kill Americans. I've asked you how much evidence the President needs to decide that a particular American can be lawfully killed, and whether the administration believes that the President can use this authority inside the United States. In my judgment, both the Congress and the public need to understand the answers to these kind of fundamental questions. What do you think needs to be done to ensure that members of the public understand more about when the government thinks it's allowed to kill them, particularly with respect to those two issues, the question of evidence and the authority to use this power within the United States?
I have been a strong proponent of trying to be as open as possible with these programs as far as our explaining what we're doing. What we need to do is optimize transparency on these issues, but at the same time optimize secrecy and the protection of our national security. I don't think that it's one or the other. It's trying to optimize both of them. And so what we need to do is make sure we explain to the American people what are the thresholds for action, what are the procedures, the practices, the processes, the approvals, the reviews. The Office of Legal Counsel Advice establishes the legal boundaries within which we can operate. It doesn't mean that we operate at those outer boundaries. And in fact, I think the American people will be quite pleased to know that we've been very disciplined, very judicious, and we only use these authorities and these capabilities as a last resort.
One other point with respect to public oversight. If the executive branch makes a mistake and kills the wrong person or a group of the wrong people, how should the government acknowledge that?
I believe we need to acknowledge it. Believe we need to acknowledge it to our foreign partners. We need to acknowledge it publicly. There are certain circumstances where there are considerations to be taken into account. But as far as I'm concerned, if there is this type of action that takes place in the interest of transparency, I believe the United States government should acknowledge it.
And acknowledge it publicly.
That would be the ideal, and that would be the objective of the program.
One last question, if I might. In my letter to you 3 weeks ago, I noted that I've been asking for over a year to receive the names of any and all countries where the intelligence community has used its lethal authorities. If confirmed, would you provide the full list of countries to the members of this committee and our current staff?
I know that this is an outstanding request on your part. During our courtesy call, we discussed it. If I were to be confirmed as Director of CIA, I would get back to you, and it would be my intention to do everything possible to meet this committee's legitimate interests and requests.
Well, I'm going to wrap up just with one sentence on this point, Chair Feinstein. It's a matter of public record, Mr. Brennan, that the raid that killed Osama bin Laden was carried out under the authority of CIA Director Leon Panetta. So that tells you right there that the intelligence community's lethal authorities have been used in at least one country. I want to hear you say that if these authorities have been used in any other countries, you'll provide this committee with the full list. Now, will you give us that assurance?
You're talking about a historical list, are you not, Senator Wyden? As far as any time, anywhere that the CIA was involved in such a lethal operation? I would have to go back and take a look at that request. Certainly anything that, if I were to go to CIA and the CIA was involved in any type of lethal activity, I would damn well make sure that this committee had that information. Absolutely.
That's a good start.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator Wyden.